Hello, welcome back for part two. It only let me do 15 minutes on part one, so I'm just going to start off with Charlie. So, Charlie talked about how depression is one of the second largest co contributors behind physical inactivity. So, people with depression typically are not exercising. Um, he talked about how Marcus was wondering about the mechanism behind this and asked Charlie about it. Um, Charlie continued to talk about inflammation, maybe a common mechanism, linking depression and physical inactivity to dementia, given that it's well established that depression and chronic inflammation are highly comorbid. So, how those two tie together to cause that. I also mentioned chronic stress from like relationships, school, work, all that fun stuff, and how they can cause a prolonged activation in the endocrine, immune system, and stress response, which results in damage to different neural networks and can cause a lot of inflammation. He also talked about how withdrawal would be a big co connector between the two. So typically, in adults suffering from depression, they typically tend to withdraw from people, work, social interactions as a whole, and that can lead to dementia because of the fact that they're not engaging in those intellectually stimulating conversations, and it prevents you from utilizing your brain cognitively and not completing those engaging tasks, and can help lead to a quicker decline in brain function. He mentioned the term use it or lose it, which I had not heard in this context before, especially with dementia, which I think is really important. I hear it about muscles and fitness as a whole, but it sounds like it really applies to this topic as well. On to the next slide. So, Miss Santi talked about the relationship between physical activity and cognitive health in older adults, as typically most of these were. Um, she kind of talked about the paper that they went over, and then being able to comprehend the mechanisms that they talk about behind this, such as biomarkers, blood flow, inflammation, um, using these to help design better exercise interventions. So, again, giving that why, um, keeping people engaged, helping them understand it so that way they adhere to it longer. She also mentioned the social aspect of it as well. So, keeping people in encouraging settings, using those social settings to not only stimulate those intellectually stimulating tasks, but to socialize as well, get to know people. Um, Again, more of the whys to help get that maximum benefit from these interventions. So, understanding why social settings help, why not just working out at home, um, why don't they have the same benefits? So, she talked about how that was really important. Um, Zach talked about the various types of mental condition disease or mental cognition diseases and disorders, especially in Alzheimer's. He brought up these brain agents that are really popular in the moment, especially in the fitness market. People advertise them a lot and the benefits they have just to overall health, honestly. So this is really interesting to read about because I'd never talked about any of the other classes I'm in. Um, but overall, he just kind of talked that there was not really a lot of evidence in either direction, talking about the actual benefits that they claim to have, and that more research should be done, which I think is important because they claim that they have such good benefits and that everybody should take them. So, research should definitely be done to see if they actually work or if they don't do anything or if they're doing negative stuff. Um, Gretchen talked about how exercise might impact cognitive function and conditions like dementia or neurodegenerative disorders. So again, it's back to like the how the exercise works. She really grasped on like understanding how it works, why it works, specifics in that. So knowing the mechanisms behind it can help optimize the exercise interventions, which a few other people have talked about. So it seems to be a really pressing point in this module, which makes sense because they are such complex things: dementia, Alzheimer's, and other neurodegenerative disorders. Something she mentioned that was different than the others was just overall going beyond general recommendations. So even if there is general recommendation just for like general health, general like guidelines to exercise, using evidence-based and targeted suggestions for these specific populations is really what makes a difference. And can honestly lead to like long-term adherence, actual benefits to the participant outside of just physical benefits. So working on these neuro um, disorders. So Jay went back to the controversy of physical education in schools, which is one of my favorite topics. Physical education in schools, he said, some people think that it would take away from the time spent in other topics. So, again, that math, reading, writing, which I mentioned before, I could see if you're looking at it in a very close, only test performance lens, not overall human lens. Jay made a good point that health is the main priority. So kids are not going to be doing any studying. They're not going to be doing well on these exams if they're always sick, if they have all these other underlying health issues caused by inactivity. And they are definitely not going to do well into adulthood and then even further into their older years if they don't understand the benefit, the need, and the ways that you can even do physical activity. It's not just like running in a gym, working out. There's like other fun things you can do. Um, he also talked about the daily physical activity for health reasons. So not only is it just like a fun thing that keeps kids engaged, lets them run off their energy, kind of dials them down, but again, it has that deeper health reason. So helping them mature, grow, and just overall take that importance of physical activity with them through the rest of their life. So that way they're a bit more to continue it long term. Um, he also talked about again how the importance of physical activity should be taught and stressed in school. A lot of kids, especially this day and age, from the iPad age, they don't really go outside and play anymore. They're not just normally physically active outside of school. So I think now is the time that they need to intervene because parents have kind of stepped out of that role, um, encouraging their kids to engage in physical activity. So I think schools, not necessarily that they need to, but I think it would be very, very beneficial if they did. I took a class in high school that was called Lifestyle Fitness, and we went like bowling, we played roller hockey, just kind of alternative ways to exercise outside of just a normal weight room. And it really changed my life, led me into this field, and led me to like the importance it can be fun and it's for everybody, even if it's not, but it can be adapted, changed, accessible to a variety of people, which I thought was really interesting. And I think that's the perfect time to do it is in a younger setting when kids are at school, they're growing, they're learning, they take that with them for a very long time. And then lastly on my list is Roslyn. Her engagement long focused on retirement homes and classes in that retirement home. She talked about how physical activity can benefit not only physical health, but also cognitive functioning in aging populations. So, kind of back to what Charlie was saying about how that withdrawal can kind of help prevent them from using that cognitive functioning, and how social environments can really prevent that withdrawal and get them engaged. Even if they don't have depression at an older age, they seem to usually quiet down. If they have severe dementia, Alzheimer's, they typically just might be harder to open up or engage with. So creating those class environments that help them do that is very useful. Rosalind also talked about the use of open spaces, such as local parks, to host like group fitness classes for older adults. She talked about how it's not necessarily a need to create a new infrastructure to promote physical activity. And instead, she talked about using the resources that already exist. I think it's a really important thing. A lot of counties, specifically Manatee County, down where I'm from, they have grown their recreation and wellness department as a whole so much. They have created community gyms, classes. They have just about everything under the sun, and it's all very affordable and sometimes even free, especially through the libraries. Um, it being accessible and in safe environments is really important because people don't want to put themselves in strange scenarios. So I think having some sort of monitoring is very important, but still making it accessible to all, especially if you're focusing on an older population because some of them are in wheelchairs, unable to walk, they need escorts, stuff like that. So keeping it accessible and open for all, I think, is really important as a whole. And then just keeping them active and moving overall is important. So that is the end of part two and the completion of my makeup assignment for Module 10 on cognition and learning. Thank you.